Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Chiles. I'm a co-founder of the Digital Fashion Group, and I'd like to welcome you to Textile Innovation in the Digital Age. Fashion is nothing without textiles, and while most consumers take the fabric of their fashion for granted, for designers, fabrics are interwoven with shape, texture, color, and construction to craft their final collection vision. For over 200 years, innovation in textiles has been driven by innovation in engineering as an integral part of industrialization. From the power loom producing simple plain weaves to the jacquard loom producing complex damasks, textile production around the world has grown in volume and in achieving consistently higher quality. The creation and weaving of yarns, combined with dyeing, finishing, applique, prints, and other embellishments, has delivered us a wealth of natural and synthetic material to adorn our physical bodies and our homes, and has delivered textiles that can assist us in many areas of our lives, from keeping us warm to keeping us cool. Today, a new digital world has opened up for textiles, fashion, and interior designers, where they can create for this world, where they can create for this digital world and for the physical world, and where artificial intelligence can support and assist with innovation. In this new digital age, textiles can go beyond the constraints of engineering and industrialization when in the digital-only world. Think of metal, concrete, gravity-defying fabrics, for example, while also supporting produce-on-demand and no-waste weaving solutions for the physical environment. Our panel today includes three key players working across digital and physical textiles and fashion innovation and development. And they are Francesca Rosella, who is the co-founder of CuteCircuit. She's a visionary entrepreneur, fashion technologist, and creative powerhouse known for her groundbreaking work at the intersection of fashion, technology, and design. Anita Michaluszko is the co-founder of Augmented Weaving and is a textile and fashion designer specialized in jacquard weaving. Her experimental work ranges from traditional crafts to digital prototyping and designing for the virtual world. She collaborates with Digital Weaving Norway, the maker of the TC2 loom, and Penelope CAD, a textile graphic software developer. Raya Khalifeh is the founder of Raya and Studio Pine. Raya is a creative innovator at the ever-evolving intersection between fashion, tech, and luxury, seamlessly blending traditional fashion and luxury market expertise with emerging tech to create a new breed of digital fabric and craft immersive, experiential brand strategies that engage consumers. I'm going to invite our panelists to give an introduction to themselves and an overview of their work. And we'll start with Francesca. We'll follow up later with questions from audience, and we'll have a discussion amongst ourselves about some pertinent points of this area. So if I'd like to hand over to you, Francesca, and as you finish, please hand over to the next. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Sean, and hello, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I am sharing my screen. I think you can see it, and I'm going to load the presentation full screen. As Sean was saying, I'm the co-founder of CuteCircuit. We started in 2004, and we were the first wearable technology fashion brand. If you're not familiar with wearable technology, and basically the thing that we do is that we create fashion with magical properties. And the way we do that is by embedding microelectronics and smart fabrics into the garment. And our product is luxury, and over the years, we developed a number of products, and we have three collections. One is what we call special projects, and which includes what you see on the upper left corner, the hug shirt, for example. That is one of the first products we ever designed. That is a shirt that allows one to send a hug over distance just by touching sensors in the fabric. The touch is captured and then goes Bluetooth into an app on the phone, and then it can go across the world, anywhere in the world, to the hug shirt of a friend, and they will feel the touch over distance. And this sort of first product we designed spawned a series of other products that then became into ready-to-wear fashion collection and also haute couture collections. And we make one-offs for either celebrities, for the red carpet, or for museums. And one of the probably most well-known one past the hug shirt is the dress we did for Katy Perry for the Met Gala. in 2010, and it was the first illuminated gown on the red carpet, and literally the day after was on the cover of every newspaper and magazine around the world. I think it was on the cover of Women's Wear Daily. Yeah, you got it here. And then basically over the years we sort of refined what we work on, and we were even awarded as like some of the best inventions of the year by Time magazine. But one of the reasons that we started doing this type of fashion embedded with electronics was because we really wanted to connect people. Because when we go out and we sort of meet other people, we wear something and we want to show our personality and express ourselves. And so we thought, well, we already have all these other technologies, and why can't we just make all these other little boxes like mobile phones that we have to carry with us today just disappear and have new qualities embedded into the garments so that we can connect with people in a more meaningful way. And this is really the whole reason we started this company. On one side was we want to connect people, but also on the other side, we wanted to sort of solve one of the problems of the fashion industry, that is over manufacturing and then disposing of clothing in landfills. So we thought we can have one garment that looks beautiful, it can do a series of amazing things, and it's like really high quality luxury, so it can last for a very long time, but it can still be always updated by controlling it through an app. And so that's why we created like these smart fabrics that can illuminate and change color, and all these sensors that can transmit touch and other sensations. And when the pandemic arrived, we sort of had to rethink a little bit what we were doing, because we do everything physical, because we do many events and we do everything for making people go out and about in their daily life or for special occasions. But all of a sudden, everybody had to be home. And so we sort of started thinking a little bit, well, how do we go about product development for the future? And so as probably many people went back like to the drawing board, and some people found cloth 3D, and everybody started making 3D garments. And then like we're like, oh, okay, these 3D garments are really great, they're really beautiful. And then obviously AI came into being, and we're like, yes, this is like fantastic. And we just want to recreate what we were doing in real life in like sort of this new wave that is a new tool. And so I spent like months crafting a prompt to make sure that all my garments in Midjourney would look exactly like my garments in real life, which was a really painstaking and difficult process. And but the thing that I thought was very interesting is that now that we are back to our normal lives, how do we bring all these digital artifacts into our real life? And so one of the things that I'm trying to do is sort of like a convergence of these cyber physical systems, in which I want my imaginary and digital garments to become real once again. And to do this, I had to come up with a whole new workflow. So I'm integrating, going from like cloth to like printing the patterns, doing laser cutting and heat bonding, so that we can craft this garment in a way that looks exactly like the Midjourney image, but then of course also works in real life. And one of the most complicated things I did recently was to create this collection that was like sportswear for an apparel activation. And basically you see the last garment there that has all these luminous filaments. These are not fiber optics. These are not like electroluminescent filaments. This is a laser filament that we actually got crafted just for us. And it was really hard to do, but it looked like the drawings. And one of the things that I think I want to bring your attention on a little bit is that we have been given this amazing tool, AI, to create and imagine new worlds and new fashions and new futures. But then our customers still want to have products that are real. And it's a very difficult process, because our mind is sort of mind blown and completely open to the new. And we create these things that are extremely complex, and then we have to bring them back and make them in real life. And it's a difficult process. And I think we can talk more about this difficult process afterwards. But one of the things that makes me happy about this new like Web3 and the digital world is that people are more collaborative. Even us in this panel, like I worked with Raya before, and I think that like there is a way that we all have so many ideas. We are given a tool that allows us to make all these ideas visible, and so we are more willing to share our ideas. So this is one of the things I worked on, and it went viral. And I was sharing even the code to create this Lorentz attractor. And so I think that there is a convergence of science and technology and design and creativity. And I don't think that the AI tools will detract from our creativity. I'm an optimist, so I really think that this will increase our creativity. And I'll leave you with my last slide that has a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he says, there are always two parties, one of the past and one of the future. I think here we are the party of the future, quite certainly, but I'm really certain that everybody can join this party because we can create many more amazing things and share them with others. So I'll pass it on to Anita, which has a super cool presentation, and see you later.
I will just go into sharing straight away. Thank you so much, Francesca, for your presentation and warming up the public. I really feel like, okay, everyone is ready to receive. It's great to see parallels also in each other's work or approach. So yes, yeah, I'm really glad to be in the company of all the inspiring speakers today. My name is Anita Michaluszko, and I'm representing Augmented Weaving, a project that I have initiated together with Flavia Bon in 2021. So Augmented Weaving is an experimental research project around the technique of Shakar weaving and digital forms of craft. It is an exploration of physical, digital, and virtual tools in textile, material, and shape creation. Our approach is craft thinking, digital making, digital thinking, craft making. To show you how this can look in practice, I will highlight 3 of our projects. So project 1, Silver Grain, was one of our first digitally woven fabric. It was selected by the Fabricant Studio for the season 2, where users could co-create out of a variety of options and mint the garment, the unique combination on the blockchain. For the Dutch Design Week, we have translated the same fabric into digital wearables that people could interact with on the screens. And we have translated it into a hand woven fabric inspired by digital aesthetics. And visitors could also take pictures of themselves in front of the fabric using an app and blur the boundaries between physical and digital, like you see here in the middle. Project 2, Twisted Object, is an ongoing exploration of 3D shape and cutting pattern creation. In this part, it resulted in a jacket that was hand woven on a TC2 loom and was exposed or exhibited, together with the fabric in the background, where you could see all the cutting pieces with the seam allowance and notches and comments, everything woven directly into the fabric. So you just had to cut it out and assemble it together. Then to close the circle, we digitalized the fabric and brought it back into the 3D shape and shown it in a 360-degree animation that allowed you to grasp the whole thing from all angles. Project 3, On the Frying Edge, was our very first digital fashion collection. We had the opportunity to be invited to Future Front Row, the very first holographic fashion presentation during Amsterdam Fashion Week. So the public was seated in rows as in a conventional situation, but in between the two sides, the collections were projected on a transparent fabric floating in the room. So here you see already another collection We were one of 8 selected creators, and it's been great to see the variety of approaches as well. Here again, as you see, our focus was on textile and textile in motion, on weaving, tailoring, and also a lot on details, as you can see in the jewelry, the shoes, accessories, the hairstyles. We really try to bring our love for textile and our craft into our real world craft into the digital world. So our journey continues, and we're already working on next project, like a commission for the Design Museum in Zurich, and mixed reality AR and physical presentation for the Heimtextil interior textile fair in Frankfurt next year, and we're looking forward to share more about that in the future. Thank you very much. And I hand over to Raya, and I'm looking very much forward to see your work.
Thank you, Anita. I mean, I must say this is brilliant work. I mean, both of you are brilliant, and I love both the work that you've showed. My brand is towards the earlier stages, so I've literally just started, and yeah, so I mean, I'm focused basically on, I'm on the luxury side, so I am focused on what the industry is built upon heritage and upon quality, upon craftsmanship, and every sort of brand, every single brand has a specific DNA. So for me, through AI, I have found a way to kind of preserve that quality and the style and take it through across the whole workflow of design. And so I've been doing it for my own brand, for myself, and I've been kind of training AI with my original physical samples. So I'm mostly specialized in embroidery. So I've taken my embroidered samples and I've trained AI to recreate and reproduce different styles. So I've managed to kind of get a quick turnaround where I'm able to control and manipulate the color and the texture, the detail, and everything in so quickly, but still with the same quality. And then kind of taking that and changing it to fashion, and then obviously taking it into 3D. And then for me, there's a very important bridge between the digital and physical. So my work is focused on physical as well. So that where I am right now is I've achieved all the digital side of things, and now I'm taking it to the physical. So I have access to local women communities in the Middle East, and I've just been out there, and we have kind of tried, we're setting up kind of like a workshop where we can actually create these embroideries so that there's a link between the digital and the physical. And it's been amazing using digital first because it outputs production ready files and it just helps with the production. So yeah, I guess this is where I'm at.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really interesting. I think great to see, to understand your backgrounds and to understand how you're developing and what you're developing, to see your examples. It's a really fascinating time in the development of fashion today. With artificial intelligence, with machine learning, with automated production, etc., and with 3D design, for example, new skills that designers have to learn, from textile designers through to product designers and fashion designers. But of course, you're all talking about something that is also still vital in this area, and that is craft. And the craft is really important because everything comes from the craft at the end of the day. And there could be a danger with digital development and digital innovation of losing the heritage of craft. And one of the things I think I pick up from your presentations is that you're all very centered on ensuring that this is a craft, that craft is involved, and that this is a new craft, for example. So we're seeing the era of digital craft. And it's great to understand that people, innovators like yourself and designers like yourself, are focused on ensuring that this is how we move forward, because we could be in danger of producing things that are just as bland as hell at the end of the day, you know, and just nothing. So, you know, just repetitive. How do you feel about this development of digital craft today? Is this something that's important? Perhaps I'd go to Francesca first, if you'd just like to start give us your opinion on that. Yeah.
I think craft will always be important. I mean, even like doing everything that is like very sci-fi, as I usually do, I mean, there is still a really important element of craftsmanship for sure. Because I mean, everything in the end can be designed with computer-aided systems, but then there is the human hand that actually has to get in there and make things sort of happen together. So for example, even when we invent a new fabric, then we have like a way of putting it together that requires at least 2 or 3 steps in which there is a human intervention, and definitely we cannot go without. Like for example, when we did the collaboration with Chanel for the handbags for the data center collection, I mean, we were able to integrate our smart fabric panel that went inside the handbags in the normal manufacturing cycle of the handbag factory in Italy, so that we would add literally just 1 step to that manufacturing process that could be done with the same machines in the same factory, and it wouldn't detract from how the final result and looked and felt, and maintain the same quality and craftsmanship and luxury level. So I think that is very important as we move forward and keep thinking about how we innovate, that we also understand that products need to feel good when people wear them and carry them about, because I mean, it still is on the body, and everything that is on the body, no matter how much technology there is within it, is still fashion, still makes a statement. So I think we need to really be trying to look at every angle and just make sure that they all fit together. And I was really, really happy and excited to see the other day there was this announcement from Bottega Veneta that they are opening a craftsmanship school, and sort of for everyone can go on the Kering website, I think, and apply. And it's like, oh my God, I want to go there and just learn how to weave these little pieces of leather and make little Bottega handbags. And so I think that it's just really exciting that there are also such large companies that understand that craftsmanship is not going to die, and it's good to support it. And we have so many resources we can share. I think it's very important to do also what Raya is doing and supporting communities in other countries. So
I think, yeah, Francesca, as you say, that there's a kind of perhaps a reinvention of what luxury brands or luxury level brands can offer the community, it can offer people. It's very clear that they are searching for their way forward in terms of defining luxury in a digital world, and also in terms of what they provide to the general consumer, not just the consumer who can afford the luxury product. So it's interesting to see these artisanal schools or these craft schools or these ways of bringing their world into the world of other people who want to learn about it and develop, I think. And that's a really interesting development in the industry itself at the moment. And Raya, you mentioned your work in the Middle East with women's communities, and you know, what immediately comes to mind there is heritage craft of that region of the people that you're working with. And it's possibly really fascinating to understand how digital might interact with that and how it might push it forward. Is there something you can tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, we all know that through AI and through blockchain, all these new tech, all of a sudden we are facilitated, you know, we're enabled, we have all the resources in our hands, and, you know, it's creative expression is democratized all of a sudden. So for me, I always look at the crafts of these women. They're so specialized. The quality is impeccable, but often they're in the background, right? So we look at like big brands and we know the legacy brands, but we don't know who actually created the products. So for me, it's a way enabled by technology to bring these women to the forefront, to kind of tell their stories, to, I guess, shine the light on their specific craft. And yeah, I mean, because we're all in an era with access, right? It's not all about like these siloed supply chains anymore. We're all enabled. So for me, this is my aim is to bring that to the forefront. And I mean, with thinking about like how digital and physical kind of interact, for me, I just always think of the textile itself, the craft, that piece of art. What makes it work? I mean, historically, what makes a piece of art or piece of craft, piece of textile work? It's that relationship we have with it. It's that touch, it's that feel, it's that, you know, how it makes you feel. So I love all the tech and all of that, but at the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves, is it changing the natural composition of the fabric itself? Because typically, I mean, for me, the most successful pieces of fabric were the ones that are closest to nature, the ones that mimic, you know, natural structures found in nature. So I think when we're going to start seeing things take off mainstream and like get massive adoption is when we manage to achieve that balance and create all these crazy wild ideas that we all have that are so brilliant, but then, you know, in a balanced way that it still resembles nature up to a certain degree, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of natural forms that are emerging in digital development, for example, that can inform textile development. And I think, Anita, what's interesting to see in your work as well from this perspective and the craft perspective, you know, you're hands-on with high-tech weaving machines, but you're bringing natural shapes into your end garment, that you're using a fabric from which you have crafted and created, you know, the texture and the drape and everything else. So, you know, for you, how important is this digital craft of the future?
Oh yeah, extremely important. And I like hearing, let's say, in what other people are saying, or fellow designers about it. But I really think that's, you know, like in Raya's work, you know, like going kind of like far back to hand embroidery and far forward like to AI and bringing the two together. This is kind of like really key to me, because we've been in a couple of discussions. Okay, is technology a threat to craft? Is craft going to die because of technology? And that was actually one of the founding motivations of augmented weaving, where we say, no, there is chances for craft in technology. And we also try to express, you know, for us, it's not only about, oh, I want to do something different than there was before, but I think like all these crafts, I mean, they've been alive all this time, they've been evolving, and we are like the generations to evolve them further with new means, with new technologies. And for me, it's not only about, like I said, doing something different than maybe my grandma did, but I want to explore something. I want to experience something on my own and create something on myself. And their technology just makes part of the process. And I think especially all the possibilities of visualization, you know, that maybe for whether it's weaving or embroidery, that you can simulate in a fast way. We at Augmented Weaving are shy yet to use AI because we have so much to explore already. But yeah, like to see it in others' work. But like how to use this as a visualization before you translate it. I mean, by example, for the twisted object, how many samples would we have done before we would have never got to this step? Actually, we just would not have gotten to this shape. And I think there is just so much free floating creativity in this exploration, and that you still have to make your choices then what you translate into the garment on the embroidery, but just make use of this, you know, like mind-opening and blowing quality of these technologies.
Absolutely. I think it's there is, for a creative person, so much can be unleashed today using the technology. And the examples that you're showing of the use of artificial intelligence. And I was hosting a session before, and the people there used a really nice word, and that is artistic intelligence. And I really like that, because I think it's such a nice contrast to artificial intelligence, and something we should all perhaps look at using in the future. It's great. But what's fascinating here, I think, well, there are two things. First of all, we're designers and we're in the industry, and we live in a bit of a bubble. You know, we kind of go down this rabbit hole of really focusing on what we're doing with using artificial intelligence, using digital technology, producing things in this area. And it's always good to remember that, because sometimes we need to step out and have a look and come back. One of the things we recently have been kind of, I think, all enveloped by is artificial intelligence, is DALL-E, is Midjourney, etc. In terms of using this creatively. I very much believe this is a great tool for a designer to use. I don't think it should drive everything, but it's a tool. And I think, Francesca, in what you were showing there as well, I see that's really working in your area, that you're diving into it and finding ways of using it and finding ways of making it real. And this is a key thing, because when you look at all these Midjourney designs that lots of people are producing, and you know, in the end, you look at it and you think, well, they all look a bit the same. You know, they're all coming out the same, and there's no difference. So it becomes no different to perhaps a business like The Gap, where, you know, everything ends up being just commodity. So we have commodity in AI, in using Midjourney, for example, but that commodity is at a kind of higher design level or construction level. Construction is another thing I'll come to. And I think this is relevant to you, Francesca. What you've shown is all this intricacy that we see in design development with cutting, with textiles, with texture, with transparency, with layering in Midjourney. How do you translate that to reality? And how do you make that? Because I look at them as a designer again, and I think, well, that's going to take me forever and ever. And so many trials of everything, as you say, Anita. It's like we would waste so much time in trying to perfect this. But Francesca, you're addressing this and you're beginning to do it. So what's the secret? Secret sauce.
The secret, really, I think, is having like a client like pushing you on a deadline. And I think that usually what really works, because I think I'm one of those master procrastinators. And literally, as you were saying, I got into the rabbit hole for Midjourney when it first came out. And literally the first 3 days, I was like producing like 3,000-4,000 images. Like for 1 week and a half, I didn't sleep. Also, one thing to notice about Midjourney, if some of the people like following us online haven't tried it yet, or if they tried it and they had the same effects I had, it really works very well with the brain rewards mechanisms. So it gives you that immediate hit of oxytocin and endorphins. It makes you really happy. And I think for creatives, that's just absolutely like mind-blowing, because you're just like, oh yeah, that was my idea. I went from this text to this image. It's totally like it looked in my mind. This is perfect. But so I think the only way to get out of that rabbit hole and just say, okay, let's try to see if we can make it real, is literally to have a deadline and to have like some real demands from a client, a customer, like a partner in a project, because literally you were talking about the transparencies, and you see all these like marvelous, like wavy wings of light, and they are like floating in space. And how are they floating in space? And so I think that like we had literally a discussion for 10 days straight with like these project partners. They literally were going through every single possible sample of fabric that we could find in order to find something that was extremely transparent, exactly as it looked in the Midjourney rendering. And it would also be structurally sound enough to actually stand up when you put the weight of these luminous filaments on it. And I mean, and then like, did it look exactly like the skin of the model? And then all of a sudden you're in the real world, is not one model cloned yet. You have real people and they come in different hues. So I think that was really interesting as a design process to make sure that we were going through every single piece of fabric, and then we were testing them. And then at the same time, we were rendering these in claw to see effectively what it will look like, to have a really quick rendering, because one of the things that all these technologies are supposed to do is also save us a bit of time. So we just didn't make 10 different versions of the garment, of the real garment, and had our seamstresses just stitch 10 garments every single day to try them all. We just went on claw, we did the 3D render, and then we're like, okay, let's swap the metallic fabric with the transparent fabric, with the stretch thing. And I mean, we went in that process like for a few weeks. Literally, I thought it was going to be something that would last 3 weeks. It lasted 3 months. It looked amazing at the end, but literally it's like we had to invent a new material. We had to invent a new way of integrating the technologies back into the fabrics. And I mean, we actually have patents for embedding microelectronics into smart fabrics into a garment. And so we just like really went back to the drawing board, like starting from our patents work, and say, okay, we are going to integrate this new material in the same way, and let's see if we can make it happen. So also for designers, it kind of pushes your boundaries of what your creativity is and what your imagination can be. But I think definitely it's like democratizing the way people can approach creativity. I know many people who are not designers, they say, oh, I can try to envision a fashion collection now. And obviously the thing that you were saying, the generalization, everything looks the same. I think it's just a matter of people like visual skills and knowledge. So it's like everything in life is a matter of, like, I think, precision of language. So when one writes a prompt, if one wants to have something very special, very specific, very crafted to what one's aesthetic is, then one has to use very precise words. Because how Midjourney is built is that it's built to give an immediate reward to your brain. And so even if somebody writes a really bland, silly description, something cool still comes out. So to avoid going the route in which everything looks the same, one really has to have an encyclopedic knowledge of all the possible art currents of the past 300 years and all the possible technological developments. So it's really a matter of expressing oneself through language to go back to visuals. I wrote an article about this when I started using Midjourney. And I went like to great length to say, okay, this is my process, and I'm understanding. I have to study more. I have to learn more, because you always need to be a step ahead, because otherwise everything's going to look the same, and that's not fun anymore. So yeah, I think learning is most important.
Learning, yeah, absolutely. You're spot on as well in terms of language being important and being able to prompt. You know, this is currently, I won't say the era, we're in the current point of time of being able to prompt as designers and understanding the technology we're working with and how we have to guide it and tell it what we want. Before I carry on, just to say to the audience that if you do have any questions that you'd like to send in, please feel free to start sending those in. We probably have about another 10 minutes or so, 12 minutes, something like that in our discussion. And we'd love to hear from you and have questions that the panel can answer. But on that side of prompting, I'll jump to Raya. And particularly in embroidery, for example, when you're talking about embroidery, have you been experimenting with artificial intelligence and prompts to create embroidery? And maybe a little bit about your experience with that would help us understand how you're working with it and the results that you're achieving.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, AI is a major part of my work, and translating the physical embroidery into digital embroidery is the biggest actually part of my work. And yes, I've been experimenting massively with the prompts and with all that. And it took me a while, but I got to a point where I'm happy with the results. And it's so funny because people look at the pictures and they think, oh, there's this one prompt, there's this magical prompt, right? And then you all of a sudden get so many people contacting you and trying to like get that out of you, you know, because they think it's a one secret sauce, but it's not. It's nothing to do with one prompt. It's mostly what you said, it's all about layering. It's layering the prompt, but layering the training images as well, and just using and reiterating, getting a base and then building up on it, and then adding and then subtracting. And it's just a whole adventure, really. It's a journey. But also back to what Francesca was saying about being able to achieve it physically. Yes, this is the challenge. But for me, I kind of got to a point where Midjourney is the inspiration, right? It's the base. And then you build on top of that as a designer, you simplify it. And for me, I just found that there is a certain beauty in being flexible. It's kind of part of the artistic journey, so to speak, that whatever you get, the outcome, it doesn't have to be the original, the original picture straight to the last detail. And for me, this is what I love about design. It's that element of surprise and that element of, oh, wow, it turned out better than I thought. And for me, this is what drives me as a designer, that end feeling is like, wow, it's better than I expected. So for me, it's all about that.
It's great. It's great to hear. I think, that some things are coming out better than you expected. But of course, there is the intervention of the designer in the end product. And that is a key point. And Anita, in terms of textile development from the point of weave, starting with weave, this is your craft at the end of the day. How do you work with programs today? Do you work with programs today to start at the point of weave, or does this come in later in terms of shape and then creation? How do you work with it today?
Actually, like one of the first slides that we had, where there's a lot of elements connected. So the idea of us is that it is all like a carousel, and it doesn't matter at what point you stop in. So sometimes the starting point can be something physical, but sometimes it can be something digital. It doesn't really matter, because you just get in somewhere and you come out somewhere. But we definitely use programs. So in the beginning, I remember being frustrated about not finding an accessible solution for weaving simulation, because it was all just built on kind of distortion effects that would give you the impression of this could be woven or knitted or whatever, or embroidered. But if you would come by, it would just not be the real thing. And I've been so happy when Substance has released cloth weave. So that was the first encounter, but we tinkered with that to its limits. And we're just about to start or being trained by the Penelope for the weaving simulation software, which gives us the same aha moment like Clo does for clothing. So to see the fabric simulated in the software with the yarns that you can even scan, etc. There is simply a lot of room for experiment and also customization, because I also often see, for creatives have a whole imaginary world in their mind, and you drop a cue and they say, oh, exactly what I mean, but it's not like that for everybody. So we always have to make that step towards someone explaining our work, taking people by the hand. And these visual simulations may just make it easier, whether it's shape or textile, like this is what I have in mind, or this is what your product could look like.
Yeah, it's really interesting, I think, and great that you now have an opportunity with Substance, for example, and then the plugins.
Yes, everybody has who has a Substance subscription has that.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. So we are I'll step, not me. You are the innovators in textile development today, and in fabric, and how that applies to fashion and craft. We do have some questions now from the audience, and I'll start with that one, which is, so the question to the panel is: we often understand that artificial intelligence has been adopted in the medical field, trend forecasting, or smart factories. Okay. And now you're designing artificial intelligence fabric and textiles. How do you expect this to develop in the next decade? Should textile mills also step into AI textile design? If anyone would like to answer that, it would be good.
Yeah, but why not, right? I think that that's like, it's like, I think sometimes we are, like there is like the thing we were seeing in the beginning, a bit of resistance to innovation. Is like, when the first washing machine came about, what was in the 40s or something, and somebody said, oh, women will never want to stop washing clothes by hand. And I mean, everybody has a washing machine right now. And it's like, when there were like personal computers, like computers came out, and somebody at IBM said there would be one per continent. I mean, we have computers in our hands, in our wrists, right? So I think that's sort of like the typical path. There is always a little bit of resistance for innovation because people are a bit scared that will completely substitute a human. And the same thing happened when photography came about, and all the painters were like, oh no, we're all going to lose our jobs. But no, we are still like in 2023, and people still paint, and there are some amazing paintings out there. And then there are some artists like Rafik Anadol that transform paintings into data, and is animated data that changes continuously. So I think we could apply similar processes to textile and textile factories, and just have products developed in a different direction that could be more interesting, because it could feed off analysis that artificial intelligence does on trends, but also like on how people are perceiving and receiving and using and consuming these trends. And then I think that there will be a really nice symbiotic evolution of the design and manufacturing field. Probably we hopefully manufacture less and manufacture better and in a more sustainable manner. So.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, I can chip in a little bit here, because in my past life, in my career, I've been design director of two companies which produce textiles, or vertical textiles through to clothing. And at the end of the day, running the product development side of the business, which includes the design studio and then the prototyping and the production. This area is all about research and development. It's all R&D investment. And, if you have a textile business and you have designers working for you and engineers working for you to translate that to the machine at the end of the day, your whole area of design and development really should be treated as research and development. And AI in this area, particularly today, should be at the forefront of your research and development, and how your design team and how your brand can work with artificial intelligence and use artificial intelligence to produce the best that you can produce at the end of the day, and to impact on sustainability and responsibility along the way. So, harness the power of artificial intelligence, not only for creativity, but for production and for streamlining your production, for getting rid of waste, getting rid of stock, overstocking of things, for working with machinery, that artificial intelligence can impact on machinery so that you don't have to produce 300 meters of a fabric for somebody to use, that you can produce 50 meters and still make it cost effective. So I think these are really interesting things that a textile mill should take on board. And of course, a textile mill needs to understand how a designer is going to work with their fabric, whether that's a fashion designer or whether it's an interior designer or whether it's a medical garment producer, for example, uniform producer. You need to understand what is needed there. It's an interesting point as well that came up for me in understanding what you're all doing, and what we're talking about here is, and again, you three are involved in the leading edge of textiles, in digital textile development, for example, or textile innovation today. My question was kind of like, who's driving innovation today? Is it just individuals like yourselves, or is it coming from a textile mill, for example, or is it coming from the consumer? There is an interesting thing here, I think, about if I think back over the last 15 years or so, and then I think Philips Digital Nomads maybe is about 20 years, 15 to 20 years ago, which was about having interactivity with your clothing and embedded electronics and everything. Francesca, this would be an area you know a lot about. this has been in the background for a lot, and Levi's had done their urban bike jackets, and various people have inbuilt functionality to control your iPod at the time, and lights on your head and whatever. This appears to have been driven by people in the industry a lot. And when it comes to the consumer having this, the consumer kind of goes, meh, you know, great, but you know, doesn't work if I haven't got a glove on, or my finger can't do this or something. I don't know. So I'm kind of thinking, is this driven by just being innovative and by us being innovative, or is the consumer saying, yes, I really want that? Any ideas on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Anita.
No, please, because I really think this is a question that every one of us has an answer to. Yes, please go on, Raya.
I mean, I was just going to say, at the moment, it is driven by companies or creators, but I think it should actually be driven by consumers, because there should be a question of how many garments do we need, right? Like, this is a question that each consumer should be asking, because, you know, we can't sustain that. And we look at the state of the world and look at how much the textile industry and the fashion industry is polluting the world. So it comes to a point where we can't sustain it. And the question should be, like, how many products should we produce? But the consumer should be aware of that fact, is that they shouldn't want that many products produced. And then that goes back to that question of why do we wear things? Because back in the day, you know, traditionally clothes were about functionality and utility. But nowadays it's not. It's about individuality, about representation. And so it's that thing is where, okay, we want to express ourselves, but I suppose we can do that expression, some of it digitally, but then the clothes that we physically wear can be the clothes that we need for function, for utility, and all of that. So we are kind of like saving the environment this way. So I think it should be kind of redirected to the consumers. And I think as designers, we need to guide the consumers through to kind of finding out that this is the way, or yes, educate.
Perhaps that's about the collaboration in the future as well. It's the collaborative element of working with the consumer as well.
Yes, and I think it's really good now, because there's an element of co-creation, like through AI, through all this technology. The consumers can be part of the design process, they can be creators. So inviting them in can actually open up that sort of closeness to the product that we need the consumers to feel. Yeah, so I guess we as designers, as creators, we have the responsibility to educate the consumers.
Thank you, Raya. I have a couple of other questions, so I'll dip into those, because we should be finishing.
Would you mind if I
go on.
No,
go on. Yes, please.
Because we had this question in our preparation discussion, you know, like all of us, and it really like went on and on resonating. And you just mentioned the word collaboration, and I just really think it's so key. And I wish there would be more also of this kind of panels, where also bring people like us and maybe industry and the consumers together, because I think like we're assembled in this discussion as kind of like the tip of, you know, like being the ones on the front experimenting and exposing ourselves to, oh, I don't know how this works, and just learning. But, you know, like, what if it's just a pity if so many things developed by people of us don't get scaled up, or just end up in some creative corner of a trend book, but don't make it to, let's say, an industry context. And I just think that we can learn and benefit so much from each other, because I have a lot of industry experience, like you, working for brands and companies and really being in the middle of it. And I see that, like, as a company, it's so difficult to be innovative, because you have your daily business running and you have your budgets, and it's so difficult to assign a budget to something where there is no guarantee that this will guarantee revenue, or just something in the blue. You know, like the three of us here, we're just like visionary dreamers, and we just, you know, put ourselves on risk and you know, like we'll spend and lose money on something creative because we just think it should be done. you know, and so we kind of like the other side. But I just see like how difficult it is for companies, or also for visionary people inside companies to go on that path. And I just think that both sides could benefit so much from each other, from collaborating. Maybe like Francesca, you mentioned the collaboration with Chanel, where you develop something and then there is a benefit for you because you can have this produced in an Italian factory and so on and so on. And maybe other things comes of it. And this brand has something of it, like being part of some visionary development. And I really think like those, it's very much about just those bridges that are missing. I really think like we have to, like, I think being able to collaborate is one of the most important skills nowadays that we should also teach at schools in all fields. You know, like we could be collaborating with the industry, but it can also be a material scientist or whoever. But I think to make whatever change in this in the complexity of today's works, like it has to go through coming together.
Yeah, I agree, Anita. It's all about that collaboration. But I feel, and this is where my focus has been right now, is kind of like we need to create that infrastructure, because right now we have all different elements to collaborate, right? But there's no kind of one place where it's streamlined so that brands can collaborate with creators, with consumers, and all of that. So I guess this is really important, and I'm glad you touched upon that, because I think this is where the building development and all of that should be, around that kind of infrastructure that offers all of this, kind of like the whole circle. We need to kind of, basically it's the whole circle. It's really interesting.
I have an example from like more the technology field, because it's something that we did for some of our products, like the hug shirts and the sound shirts. And basically the sound shirt is the version of the hug shirt that a deaf person can wear when going to feel an orchestra. And basically the way we developed that is that we actually worked with deaf and hard of hearing people, and they told us what sensations they wanted to feel. So we did the first prototype with an orchestra, and then we actually welcomed deaf people, hard of hearing people, their friends, everybody got to try it. They gave us feedback, and then we iterated the design with their feedback and improved the product. And we've been doing this for a few years, and so the product keeps getting better, better, and better, because the final users are involved in the creation process. And this is called participatory design. And it's something that does not exist in the fashion industry at all, because usually there is a designer that is a somewhat benevolent dictator and says, oh, this year this is what we are all going to wear, and it's going to be fabulous. And then maybe some people are like, oh, it doesn't fit me, it makes me feel like I gained 2 kilograms. And so I think it's like really there's no like feedback from the final user. And then the weirdest thing is that sometimes there are trend forecasting companies that actually forecast a trend by collecting images of trends that have already happened. And so while I totally understand that this trend might trickle 6 more months or 8 more months into the future, it has already happened. So somehow there is the participation of the user has already happened. They're not interested in that anymore. They want to go somewhere else. So I think that there is a little bit of a push and pull between the final user of this product, that is the fashion product, versus the technology product. And I'm always like here in the middle. And it's like, okay, let's try to see if people want to participate in the creation. And I think co-creation tools, as Anita was saying, that they're really important because they make the final user participate. However, we have to manufacture smaller numbers, and that's really true. And one of the biggest issues in the fashion industry is that people can buy a Topshop t-shirt for £5, and that shouldn't be happening. And there should be a way where people understand the value. We're going back to craft, but understanding why some garment is priced at a different price point than the £5 t-shirt, and what happens to the workers, and how long it lasts. Because I mean, if I buy a very expensive coat, but it lasts me for 15 years, like for example, I have an Alberta Ferretti coat that my lovely mother, who's watching us, gifted to me back in, I think, 2005. And I mean, I've been using it since. It looks perfectly brand new. The cut is amazing. It has this massive hood. It's like perfect. It didn't peel. The lining is perfect. It didn't come unstitched. I mean, it's been widely amortized over like a massive amount of time, like about 18 years. So, I mean, that's how clothing should be. And that's what our grandparents had. And so I think maybe it's also a bit of education starting in the schools, but also education on how we consume things and how we can recycle them and reuse them.
Yeah, very, very much so. And yeah, you're perfect, you know. Absolutely, quality garments, quality design, quality production gives you longevity with a product at the end of the day. That's the basis of bespoke, the basis of couture, and everything else. Things are adjustable as well as you change in your size as you grow older. Really interesting. We're a bit over the time. If you're willing, we have 2 more questions because we are the last session of DigiFashion Forum. So if you're happy, I will give you these 2 questions. One we've kind of touched on already, but this first one from the audience: do you use other AI tools than Midjourney? Is Clo3D the software used for constructing the 3D versions of the designs? Whoever would like to chip in with that. I mean, we've touched on it already in the conversation. I think Anita mentioned, Francesca maybe mentioned going into Clo to see things in 3D and to see the pattern that you might come out at the end. But anyone, maybe not just Midjourney, some other things that you might use or find interesting to use?
Oh, I love Pika Labs. So if you like, are really like into trying to pre-visualize what something looks like on the runway, I think Pika Labs is amazing because you can put any image in there and just ask it to animate and give indications on how you want to animate, or just tell it to animate and it does it by itself. And it looks really fabulous. I keep posting on my Instagram stories all these like models walking on the catwalk, and the fabric renderings look so luscious and wonderful. And then like sometimes I just like to chat with ChatGPT, but I don't ask ChatGPT to write my prompts. We have discussions about creativity in general. And I think it's hilarious. It's just because like the other day I was asking it, I was having like a discussion with someone, and then they were like, you think the machines are going to take over? And so I was like, hey chat, I was just thinking about the future, and you know, you are like running on some cloud right now, but you ever think like about yourself as potentially getting an embodiment of yourself and just coming out of the computer screen and hang out with us and play a tennis match? And chat went on a long description about how to build the Android. And probably like 10, 15 years down the road, we will.
Francesca, be careful what you're doing.
Yeah, they just don't do like me, don't incite the machines to take over. I'm just really curious. So I have like these very bizarre, fun conversations, and then I just share. Sometimes I take screenshots and I share them online because I think it's just so funny. But it's interesting to basically chat with someone that has encyclopedic knowledge of everything. Sometimes he gets it wrong, and sometimes he gets it right. So it also teaches people to double check facts. And,
yes,
and
absolutely.
So I think like it's good to try all of them because they give you so many ideas, both bizarre and really good. And so I think just try them all if you haven't yet.
Try them all. And Anita, you particularly talking about using substance, and maybe that's just interesting for somebody to understand how that works in terms of digital fabric development. That it's not an AI, but it has elements of it coming or being built in. And how do you?
Yeah. But I really like, you know, like what Francesca describes, like this being this, whatever it is, a program. I mean, from the early days when I've been working with programs, I've seen them as partners, you know, and sometimes they can do amazing things. And I would be, oh, this is amazing, like so lovely of you to give this to me. Thank you. I'm going to take it and use it in my work and use it further. So, yeah, I mean, substance is basically the 3D, Adobe's 3D answer to 3D tools. So so as in AI, there is a variety of 3D programs, and let's say Substance is one of them. And I got familiar to that. I don't know how other programs work there, but it with this tool, it offers a very easy simulation that you can actually combine. I mean, some of it will be weavable, some of it will just go too far. But actually, I've been also asked in November, I will teach it to a textile design student in an art school in Switzerland to use it as a design tool for actually their weavings, but also as a new input and point of view, because I think also these programs, you know, like we give them prompts, but they also give prompts to us, you know, they also come up with something and they are kind of ask, how would you weave these? You know, and then you go on. So I think like if you really look at them like this is like entering a conversation with them, partnering up with them, it really does go both ways. You know, you challenge them and they challenge you, and it's an ongoing discussions and yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, and Raya, anything from you? Special,
special
use?
Yes, I mean, I like what Anita was talking about. Substance. I mean, I believe that substance has the best quality for textiles. Its ability of picking up on the things that other 3D software maybe don't. Especially with my work, when I'm focused on embroidery, I find that substance really works. And in terms of Midjourney is for me what I would use, is my choice, because it's got the aesthetic quality is honestly second to none, because it's got these design elements inherently. But also Leonardo is good when you have like a bulk of training images that you want to upload. It works for bulk training, basically. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Some good tips for people. And we'll move on to the last question, if you're willing, and then we'll wrap up. The last question is, AI and 3D design software help you design the textile in the real world. Do you think this will mitigate the waste and really improve the resources constraints the world is now facing? Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, yes. You're going to produce less, like it's just a matter of production, right? If you're using AI, you're typically going to do like prototypes. You're prototyping virtually, that you don't really need to cut fabric to do a physical prototype as often as you would do. So it's just, it would definitely cut the resources, and it's quicker. And in terms of that, it's like, it's less cost. You're paying out less. So yes, short answer, that's a short
yeah.
But it also depends on how you use it, you know, because it's also on you, you know, like you can use it to produce more and worse, or you can use it to produce less and better. And yes. I think these possibilities for visualization, you know, like in one of our, I don't know, texts with augmented weaving, we wrote that we envision a world where the digital space is an endless playground, while the production of physical good becomes rare and the absolute luxury. So I really believe in this kind of combinations, you know, where you can design and you can go wild in the virtual world, but then whatever you design to produce should be no mass production, but maybe like in Raya's hand, embroidered by hand and like extremely precious. But at the same time, in 3D, you could fit this garment or whatever it is, this object, let's say, to a customer's body and make it exactly, you know, like the today's version of the Alberta Ferretti code, or like what you really decide to put out there, it should really be the quality, that it should really be the masterpiece. And as a designer, it's maybe limited to it's difficult to limit yourself just to this, because your creativity just wants to run wild. But I think this is a way we could use it or work with it.
Yeah.
I think it's like something about being able to edit ourselves. So I think now we can like overproduce ideas much faster, but then at the same time we can iterate them faster, and we should also learn to really edit ourselves. Like, for example, when I do an Instagram post, I post 10 images. And literally I start from 500, 600 images, and then I spend days like cutting it down until I find the ones that actually really make sense. So I think that there is a way of having to sort of like edit oneself. And also another thing that I was thinking is like, I feel like Donna Karan's, one of her first collection was called 7 Easy Pieces. And sort of like the basic things you need to have in your wardrobe, and you really don't need that much more than that. I mean, I always wear the same things that really make me feel good. And so I think that we should sort of like not aim for like buying 3 million things, but just buy the few things that really make us feel good. And I think that's just...
Yeah. Absolutely. It's an important message, you know, that design phrase "less is more" is always a good one, I think, and I think we can be maximalist, but it's still less is more if you come down to consumption and throwaway fashion, which we can do without. But we're all independent people, independent designers, talking about luxury end of fashion here, really, and luxury end of innovation. It's been a fascinating conversation, I think, and some great insights into how you work and what you do, how you collaborate together, and the future of textile innovation. So thank you for joining this session, to Raya, to Anita, to Francesca, and thank you to the audience for joining, and we'll say goodbye now. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, everyone.